Hello, everyone, and welcome to an amazing session today with Jess Burgess, phenomenal career coach and general personal development and relationship coach based in the wonderful, beautiful area of the Lowveld here in South Africa. We're sitting together today to discuss a variety of ways that you can grow and improve your mindset and your mental health in tackling all those career and business goals. Jess, thank you so much today for making time to speak to me. It's always so fun to get together. How are you enjoying this wonderful sort of end of spring going into summer?
Yeah, we've had a couple of low-fault storms, which is very normal, but yeah, it's quite nice now. Everyone is starting to wind down for the year. I think most of us are on the fumes, at the end of year fumes, wrapping up our work life and trying to get ready for family holidays. So it's a busy time of year, but everyone's getting ready to take a rest now.
I love the way you bring family into that because it's so true. When we're so busy in life, we often get so involved with the great saying, people take the briefcase to the beach and they take the beach chain to the office. And people spend so much of their time stressed about work when they're supposed to be with family, and sometimes stressing about trying to get the family right when they're at work, and that obviously divides their time. And one of the big things we wanted to discuss today is obviously the kind of people who thrive despite the stresses of life. And the kinds of people who take their successes and their failures and either use them as launch boards to succeed versus obviously letting them be like lead anchors on their ankles. So I'm very keen to get your perspective on that and what you would sort of suggest in terms of what people can look at from the power of choice perspective. Very much people love to say, oh, pull yourself up with the bootstraps and just do it better. But we all know, Morgan Freeman's a great example. You can start from really rough areas, but choices obviously guide a lot of where you end up in life and what you make of your situation. So I'd love to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, so I think one of my favorite quotes is where focus goes, energy flows. And I think that's so true for our energy levels and where we decide to dedicate our energy on a daily basis as well. So those of us who throw ourselves into our career will often find a deficit in our relationships, for example. So we want to make sure that we are consistently and persistently putting energy equally in all areas of our life. And like when the power of choice comes up, it's what are we going to do to focus on in the moment? So smallest thing when I first started my personal growth journey for just me, I had this mentality of I have to wash the dishes. I have to clean my house. I have to go see family. All these I have to. And I felt it in my physiology where everything was a mission and I was tired and my energy was low and I had to do all these things. And one of my mentors told me if I just switch out the wording a little bit and power of choice and language of saying I get to. And it totally shifted my mindset in I can choose to find the gratitude in a situation or I can choose to focus on my attitude. And both of those would create an entirely different reality for myself. So saying something like I have to wash the dishes to I get to wash the dishes, which means I have meals to eat and I actually get to have a house to take care of, where you suddenly take that expectation of what I want to do to what I actually get to do right now. It changes to an attitude of gratitude. And I think that is the power of choice. And if we look at leaders who've inspired us most, the leaders who come from very privileged backgrounds and have had a perfect life, they're not as impactful as the leaders who have had tougher circumstances but decided that that is not where their story ends. But like you said, rather used it as a launch pad to grow their life. And that is why they're inspiring, because they had every reason not to succeed, but they made a choice that was not where the story ends. And I think that is really important.
I love the way you phrase that. Even if you look at great iconoclasts in South Africa, the likes of Mandela and Temekwayo and stuff, where they all started with very rough beginnings and they have very tumultuous 20s and 30s. And then, they don't just survive, but they thrive to the ability to help those around them. And I often like to think that choice is like a candle to some degree. Is the brighter yours is, means you enable people to also feel free to be brighter, to make better choices. I find that the whole point of a role model is exactly that. What's the better choice? Because choices are an amalgam of what you're going to become. There's a very, very wonderful saying that what you do today is who you are in a year. And good choices compound the same way bad ones do. So if you do a year's worth of good choices, 1% today, if you're 365%, that's almost 4x better by next year. And I think people, they undervalue their choices in the short term and regret their choices in the long term, whereas the power of choice is wonderful because you can actually plan your choices for the long term, which is quite wonderful. And with that, you want to take in the true why, right? Anyone can hop in a bucky and fly down the farm roads of the Karoo. Anyone can hop in a boat and out in the ocean. But if you don't have a why or a where of what you're doing, you're going to amble, you're going to get lost, you're going to run out of fuel. And the same is true for a vehicle and your own mindset, personal energy. And when we talk the power of why, I mean, there's an example that was phrased to me recently, where if I asked you to cross a 100-meter steel beam, a meter off the ground, for 100 Rand, you'll be like, sure. I ask you to cross the same 100-meter beam 10 stories up on a building, 100 Rand, you'll be like, no, sod off, right? That's like a bad why. But I tell you, a family member's on the side of a burning building, you'll cross that beam, no problem. Like, why is such a powerful driver? And I think people get so bogged down in the day-to-day, they forget their why. And I really love to hear your perspective of how people can try and find their why, because some people don't even have one yet.
Well, actually, your analogy is perfect because there's a difference between a core driving why that's linked to our significance and a core driving why that's linked to our contribution. And instinctively, when we grow up, especially when we're younger, it's a lot about making a name for ourselves. Who am I going to be in this great big world? As we get older, we start to realize that the great big world is actually rather small in perspective to the universe. And suddenly we realize, well, maybe it's not who I am, but what I can do. And I think that's where the core why is so important because it totally, again, it shifts the kinds of goals we make, which shifts the decisions we make, which shifts the impact we have. And having a core why is like a compass. It takes a goal from being something very superficial to something that is going to have massive impact for years to come. And so asking questions like, there's a goal, you have a dream and you have a goal, and saying, why is that important to me? Like personally, why is it important to me? Getting an answer and continuously asking the why is it important to me over and over again until you get a base why. And what we often find is either our base why is linked to the significance, which is maybe why we've been stumbling, because for as long as we're attaching a core why to our personal significance, we are often looking too much for external validation. And that's going to trip us up because we're never going to please all of the people all of the time, right? You can only please some of the people some of the time. So when we align our core why to a greater purpose, something that's bigger than ourselves, something that says, I'm here to contribute my time and energy into a legacy, into maybe not making only my future better, but somebody else's future better. It becomes so much easier to go after those goals and stick to those goals because as human beings, we are programmed to connect. We're programmed to connect and to contribute, and we want to leave something behind. That's what we have this time here for. And when it's connected to something bigger than ourselves, it becomes easier to put the late night in towards a goal. For example, when you're working overtime for a goal that you're not aligned with. I mean, anyone who's been in the corporate industry, who's, going after the extra hours and overtime hours, you get burnout. However, when you're passionate about your core why, you want to put in the late night hours. It's fun. You're like, I can do it. So the core why is your compass. It's your battery. It's your map.
I love it. I love the way you say that because the core why for business owners, especially people starting out and people even trying to decide a career, if you attach your core why to something great, it's a great example of the woman who sells groceries on the side of the street to feed her family versus the team of ladies who make a stand together or shop together to feed a group. And then you obviously get companies which are designed to support many people. They often say the best companies that survive the longest were never built for profit, they were built for why. And Simon Sinek is famous for approaching the point of, if you peel back the onions of who you are and your goals and your milestones and your dreams, really, because you get to that core reason is Are you wanting to help as many people not to have to suffer poverty, for example, or making sure everyone's fed because maybe malnutrition was a thing in the youth? So that why becomes so much more important. It's like there's a good adverb in services that we get told, if your why is customer care, you would never worry about profit because people will just keep referring you. And we found it to be so true. When you align your why for a greater goal, your growth is just phenomenally better. And that lines us up to SMART goals because at the end of the day, dreams aren't just goals that have yet to be planned. And goals are simply action steps that need to be, masked and then broken down. So you've got a fantastic section of how you break down SMART as an acronym, the SMART. So I'm very, very keen to help let you explain to everyone what the specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound purposes of goals are, because we all know a goal without time is a dream, right? So break that down for everyone. Break that down for everyone who may want to sit down today and plan their next year.
Yeah, so SMART goals, exactly what you said. It takes a wish to an actual achievable something. Anyone who's made a New Year's resolution will know about the difference between a wish and a SMART goal. So I always laugh about New Year's resolutions because it's this time of year where we start to reflect on how we've lived our last year. And we start to really make these plans for the next year. Like, I'm going to do this next year. And I'm going to have the same goal that I set at the beginning of this year that I didn't achieve. I'm going to put it on the list again. And I think those goals are really interesting to me because what a lot of people don't do is ask themselves, why didn't I actually achieve that goal that I had at the beginning of the year? And it often comes down to the SMART goal. And it's because a couple of reasons. Maybe it wasn't specific enough. So a SMART goal is specific. For example, lots of people have this on their list. It's next year, I want to make more money. Or I want to make more money right now. If that was your goal and I gave you R1, in a second you've made more money. But that's not going to change your life. So you want to be specific with the numbers, the details, the direction. It's the same as I want to own a house. You can probably own a house in the next 10 minutes, but what kind of house do you want? Do you want a safe house? Do you want a secure house? Do you want a house close to your parents or maybe not so close to your parents, depending on how your family relations are? But you want to get very specific because the more broad the goal is, the easier it is for you to get lost on that journey. And I also think it's easier to give up on a journey that's not specific. Because, again, if you said, I want more money, and you make R100, mentally your subconscious might be like, oh, well, I did what I set out to achieve. Okay, bank that goal. Come the end of the year, you're like, oh, I didn't really reach what I wanted. So I also think it makes your brain and subconscious work towards the goal a lot better when it's specific, because your brain will move you towards something specific. I want to achieve X, Y, and Z. Makes your brain say, okay, it's like a computer system. If you ask the right questions, you're going to get the right answers. If you ask very broad questions, your answers aren't going to be so good. So you want to make the goal specific. You want to make it measurable. Measurable means there are going to be steps along the way where you can look back and say, okay, I may not be there yet, but there are specific flag points where I can say I've achieved X amount towards this goal. And that also allows you to keep your motivation up, because when a goal is not measurable, you actually never know if you're ever closer or further away from where you're going. So you want to make sure you can add those flag points of, I'm getting closer. Achievable means, do you have everything you need right now to achieve that goal? And if not, it's not that you shouldn't go after the goal, but rather that you need a pre-goal to your goal. So perhaps you don't have the correct resources. Perhaps you don't have the correct mentors. You've got 2 goals to achieve before you go after this goal, which again, it just helps with the direction. So is it achievable right now? Not like in the next few seconds, but you have everything you need now to go after it. Relevant comes back to our core why. If it's not attached to your core why, I don't want to say 100% because that's not a real statistic, but chances are you're going to give up on the goal because it doesn't have enough drive. If it's not relevant to your core why, the huge driving force, your purpose of life, it's going to be so easy to give it up because it's not going to bring enough reward, enough challenge even. So it's like, I've lived long enough without it, do I really need it? So you want to make sure that it relevant to that core why, it's connected to that deep, meaningful purpose. And then we've got time bound. Time bound, again, it helps with measuring how far you are from that goal and if you're reaching it at a speed you should be. This also allows you to see how much energy you should be putting into a goal, because some goals require all of your focus, all of your energy. Other goals require many baby steps every day that consistently get you there, and you'll get it in the time that you want. But if you say, I want to achieve something in 6 months, and you wait till the last month, again, you're going to be crunch time, and we let ourselves off the hook. So time bound gives you a deadline. It's like, I have something to work towards, and I need to get there. It creates an urgency in us. And we don't want too much stress. Too much cortisol, not good for our bodies. But a little bit of stress keeps the momentum going, which is really great. We want to keep the momentum going. So having a time-bound goal is like a sense of urgency that puts just enough pressure on us to say, ooh, I need to, warning bell, I need to be working on that a little bit more.
I love the way you break that down. And for the audience, this is a truly phenomenal thing. I got discovered a similar concept in my teens. And for the past decade or two, something great for the audience is sit down and go SMART. And then write down on one piece of paper 5 goals. And you guys can, Jim Rohn makes a big point of this regular, and Brian Tracy. Write down 5 goals that you want to do in your life. Big things, big, hairy, audacious goals, be hacked. And try and take each of those 5 and apply it. Smart. Because if you go on a home, great example, I think the majority of humanity wants a nice home, a safe home. And you say, okay, cool, but what is that home? Is it a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, double carport in the burbs? Cool. Is that a farmhouse with 6 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms and a pool, and 5 parking lots? Cool. Maybe it's a rural house that's just a 2-bedroom in the middle of the Karoo because you want to be away from people. That's great. Specific. And then, like you say, take in the measurable factors. What does it cost to buy them?
Yeah.
But not just the purchase of the house. Double that. Add in transfer tax. Add in all the stuff nobody tells you about.
Yeah, what admin do I need?
Double it, right? Always a great way to go. And then achievable. You go, okay, cool. I need 5 bar to buy the house I want. All things included. Can I do that in 1 year? Divide that by 12. That's 600 grand a month. That's a big euro. But divide that by 5 years, and suddenly it's $1 million a year. Divide that by 12 months, and suddenly it's only 80 odd K. And it's surprising what happens when you take what's achievable and then you make it relevant. You say, okay, cool, how do I make 80K a month or 40K a month? And for relevance, $1 million house is 10K in rent or bond. Whether you're renting a house or you're buying it, it's almost the same. So 5 million, 50K, not even 80. 80 is a good goal. So you find the relevance of how can you make that work. You plan it out. And then what you do is you put a timestamp to it. And that's where you put those nice, like you said, milestones.
Yeah.
Whether it's a house, whether it's a car, whether it's that diploma, whether it's that business you're launching. Say, okay, cool, I need 5 years to do this, because people are horribly underestimate what they can do in 5 years. Bill Gates proved this in 70%. But they overestimate what they think they can do in 1 year. So divide into 5 years, and then divide your first 24 months up, and then go, okay, cool, what steps do I need to smash to get there? So maybe you're not making 80K in month 1, so you know that by the end of year 2, you need to be making a certain value. Great. Rather build a system on time steps that can achieve that for you. Like you said, instead of you focusing all your life on one thing, maybe you've got 5 goals. Set each of them up and give them time frames, which is why it's nice to pre-plan your calendar. I'm a big fan of pre-planning much of your next year as you physically can, because they say a road with signs is an easy road to travel. A road with no signs is a very convoluted way to climb a mountain.
It's a much bigger adventure than we might be prepared for.
So I love the word adventure, I do, because to take an adventure, to have an adventure, to experience an adventure, you have to take action. Yeah. So many people get trapped in the loop, and I love what you said earlier about this, is people go into uninformed optimism, they get into really excited, busyness, and then they fall into that valley of unknown, despair before getting out into known. That's where most people drop off and go to shiny objects and take stuff. But if you want to hike a mountain, or you want to go to the waterfall, or you want to go see a beautiful museum in the middle of a city that you've been to, you need to take the action. Yes, you can plan. You need to plan, because you don't want to just arrive in Paris and not know where the Louvre is. You're going to get horribly lost and take advantage of it. But if you've planned it, you've done your SMART goals, you've got this 5x5 action plan, which I'm really, really keen to, because we've heard of similar ways of explaining it, but I love your particular take. I want to explain and run everyone through that.
Yeah, so just like you said, once you have this fantastic goal, it's specific, it's measurable, all these fantastic things, people think that's where we stop. Okay, so if you've never done goals, you've never done action plans, people think that getting the goal down is the essential, which it is as a starting point.
So say 1/3 of the problem.
Yeah. But then it's, how do I even do that? And most people, when they're starting out on any kind of journey, will say, okay, I know what I want, but I can't start because I don't know where to start. And we call it the TBM 5x5 method, where it really gives you a go-to action plan where you've got your goal and you have a starting point and you have a finish point. And you've basically got a multi-level tool that if an obstacle comes up, you can use the exact same tool to tackle the obstacle, which is great because I say this with my clients, is the only certain thing about life is that it's going to be uncertain. So we can make the best goal ever, the best plan ever, and 100% life's going to throw you a curveball. Like, it's never convenient to go after a goal. So you'll have this plan of, if everything goes according to my plan, I'll achieve this goal. Life will make sure that something in the plan is a little twisted. That's the fun part, actually. Once you reframe your mind, you're like, challenge, exciting. But an action plan really helps you get excited about challenges because you know how to tackle them. So the TBM 5x5 method, once you get your goal, you want to look at your goal and break that down into 5 steps. 5 steps that you need to take in order to achieve this goal. And you want to prioritize it. What step do I have to do first, second, third, fourth, etc.? Once you've got those 5 steps, you literally take each of those steps, break them down into 5 smaller steps, prioritize them. When you look at that, once you've written it all out, you have got a step-by-step plan to get your goal. Now the guesswork is actually taken out of the goal, which makes it exciting, but also we thrive on a level of certainty as human beings. You know, we all love adventure. You know, if you ask people, they'll say, do you love surprises? They'll go, oh, I love surprises. No, you don't. You only like the surprises you want. It's the surprises you don't want. So when we have this tool, we've got an easy step-by-step plan where we can daily implement the next step towards our goal. So we know life's going to throw us an obstacle. When we get that obstacle, that becomes a new part of that goal. So it becomes a goal on its own. So challenge, spanner thrown into the works. Take the spanner, break it down into 5 steps. Okay, so 5 steps I need to take in order to overcome this challenge, and do the same thing. Break those steps down into 5 smaller steps. And so every challenge, every goal gets an action plan. And so you never stop the momentum. And that's, I think, something that's really big for anyone who's on a journey to elevate themselves, to take control of the narrative, to, you know, write their destiny how they want. It's once you start, how do I keep the momentum? Because a lot of us start, especially at the beginning of the year, a lot of us start with this renewed energy of, this is how this year's going to go. And like, come March, we're like, this year's not going how I want it to. So how do you keep the momentum? And the action plan, this 5x5 method, personally, I have found is the go-to when I feel that stagnancy of I'm not achieving as fast as I'd like to be. Something's in my way, and I go back to this tool every time, and it just picks up that momentum. So I never have to stop and get stagnant and wonder. And when we're in that stopping of momentum, it's so much harder to start again. So you want to try and keep it going as far as you can to get to the goal.
I love it the way you say it's a momentum game, because if you take the life cycle of a business or a career, that valley of despair, that's where traction and momentum often gets lost with a lot of people. And what we found after working with so many entrepreneurs, and really we find this to be so, so true, and I love it, is people go into building a business and they get told, make a business plan, or they get told, go into a career and plan your career, and you plan the first 2 years. Cool. Then what happens is, maybe you get through that on the whim of excitement and hustling and you're grinding and getting there. But then what happens is people invariably get to this point where they're like, what now? And that's where most people suffer, and why they say most businesses, 7 out of 10, 9 out of 10 businesses. 7 out of 10 businesses don't survive their first year, 9 out of 10 don't survive their third. So it's a horrifying statistic, but what it actually comes down to is the planning. So what happens is most business owners might go so far as plan the goals. They'll have smart goals, and they're dedicated. And after today, all of you want to see it. Go down, write it down. But if you take your action plans and you break them down, 25, 5x5, 25 steps, Technically, it's 5 under each, so it's actually 30 steps. So you could do that in 2 weeks per step, and that's 1 year. Or you could do that as 12 weeks per step, and that's 5 years. But if you allocate the specific time zones you think is achievable, there's this famous saying, and I love what you just said now, is anyone with ADD, ADHD, neurodivergent, I'm not attacking you, but this is right at your alley. We, and I'm one of them, will leave studying to the night before. We'll leave that proposal to the night before. We'll leave that everything to the week before, month before, whatever the goal plan is. And we can suddenly cram and make it happen. But imagine how much more awesome it was if that was done in the beginning. And also, when you get to Valley of Despair, instead of going, oh poop, what do I do now? I don't know what I'm doing, and you make bad choices. You just open up the piece of paper. We've got a fantastic saying, and everyone please write it down, fold it up, preferably an A5, A4 piece of paper, fold it up, it fits in your cell phone case beautifully. I'm not even joking, I've got mine right here. Carry it with you. Rewrite it every quarter, rewrite it every year. When you do your new year, new me, write the list again, look at it. But the trick is, don't only future plan, past plan. And it's an interesting phrase that if you tick off your annual goals and you've hit 60, 70% of them, you feel a hell of a lot better than if you have a list of 30 goals you didn't touch.
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing. Plan 5 by 5. Maybe you smash out 2, 3 goals of each of the main 5. You're suddenly feeling so much better yourself, and you go into the new year feeling invigorated, empowered, and then you can plan the next, which is really, really cool. And that brings us to the overcoming the obstacles. And you touched on this briefly, and I want to get a bit more into it, because I feel like everyone behind the camera is going to go, yeah, but things happen.
Oh, I love that
the
you
tire
said that.
bursts, the window explodes, my kid got sick.
Oh, I love that.
And as much as everyone in humanity likes to the butts, everywhere all over, what we like to do is an obstacle in school was just a wooden fence you had to climb up. In high school or in college, it was an academic fence to go.
It was maths.
Maths, languages, for me it was like Afrikaans, So the nice thing is, everyone's brain is different.
Yeah.
And we all come across an obstacle and look at the same obstacle 1,000 different ways. And the tackling of the obstacles where most people, they lose belief in themselves. And I really want to hear, how do you advise they tackle the obstacle?
So I'll chuck in a personal story here, because when I started TBM, I did all the right things. Everything we've spoken about, I've checked the boxes. And what I said just now is, one thing that's certain about life is it's uncertain. That's the certainty in life, is that it's going to be uncertain. And same thing, I had an epiphany in my life. I went through my own personal growth journey where I had to pay it forward. And it was a beautiful core why, and it wasn't about me and how people saw me. It was about, I need to pay this forward so other lives can be impacted. Other people can take control of their narrative and lead their life. So the core why was there. I had SMART goals. This is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it. This is when I want to do it. I had the action plan as well. But I had always worked for somebody else. So I went into this starting a business with an employee mindset. And what changed very quickly, I'd say, in the first year and a half of business, is a lot of the things that I maybe put against my old bosses, sorry if you were one of them, you were all great, was that I learned very quickly that it's a totally different mindset when you're thinking like an employee and you're thinking like a business owner. When you're thinking like an employee, it's very much significance based. How am I affected? My burnout, my stress, my salary. It's all about me. When you start to shift from that mindset into the business owner mindset, you start to realize it's about the people who rely on your business, not just your clients, but your team. It's about what the business needs, not what you need. And so you very quickly have to put your victim mentality aside. Now, I love what you said there as well when you introduced this topic of everyone will have but my life, but my excuses and my past. And this is what I love about human patterns. So within leadership development and what we do at TBM, it comes down to patterns, behavioral patterns. And we're all unique. However, there are only so many human behavioral patterns. And once you are able to start recognizing those patterns, it's really helpful in order to overcome obstacles, because you can see where your thinking's at. Am I being driven by significance? Am I being driven by certainty? Am I being driven by contribution, love, connection, whatever it is? And you can decide if that is going to be a sustainable when it comes to obstacles as well, is the truth is everyone has excuses, and those excuses are always valid. Stress, time, family obligations, resources, all excuses are valid, but they're still excuses. And as valid as they are, they're still not going to get you forward. And so one of the things I started doing when I went through obstacles, when I started my journey of owning a business and trying to make it a successful business, was I was always looking at things like what to do with this problem. Instead of looking at who are other successful business owners who have faced the same problem. Because what to do with this problem, you're going to get vague answers, right? It's a vague question. You're going to get vague answers. Whereas if you look at 5 mentors who have overcome the same problem, you've got 5 solutions. And they might have a common thread. You're like, oh, okay. It puts you on a much more narrow direction in terms of overcoming obstacles and fast. So instead of doing it the hard way, and again, this is really important coming down to obstacles and mentors, is the hard way is I'm going to do it myself. Also an employee mindset, when you first start a business, it's like, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do it myself. Very quickly, you learn that real business, successful business, is about connection. Overcoming obstacles. All those leaders who, have inspired me, Tony Robbins, Oprah Winfrey, Nelson Mandela, they weren't leaders because they had the perfect circumstances. They're not inspiring because they had the perfect circumstances. It was their decision and their mindset to overcome those challenges. So becoming a leader despite those circumstances was huge. And one thing all those people have in common is they knew when to ask for help. They knew they couldn't do it by themselves. And so what I'd always recommend to clients is, especially when they're coming for, let's say, one-on-one coaching, is I'll say, don't just look to me as a mentor. You can, if you want to, like have me as a mentor, but not just one. Generally, you should have at least 5 mentors. Because if you're going to be a leader in your own right, if you're following one person, you are a follower. But if you are studying and observing 5 different leaders, you're creating a leadership identity that you can resonate with. And it's a very big difference. Lots of people want to find a hero. A hero makes you a follower. You don't want to be a follower. If you want to succeed in leading yourself, in overcoming obstacles, you want to have 5 mentors that give you 5 different perspectives, and you want to be the 6th perspective. Based on that knowledge, what is my perspective? And like you said, looking at an obstacle not just as this is what it is, but are there different ways to reframe this obstacle? Is it an opportunity? Is it an opportunity to connect? Is it an opportunity to grow? Is this an opportunity for me to level up in a skill? So reframe the word obstacle as well.
I love it because that ties right back to the get, not have to. It's like if you're, and I'm going to use the PE analogy because it's an easy one as a visualization. If I'm in PE and I have to climb this giant wooden wall and I'm potentially a short person and this wall looks huge and I'm like, how do I get up it? And you're always going, how, why me? And like you say, you get stuck in that bit. But if you go, I get to climb the wall, how can I climb the wall? You suddenly realize collaboration. Firefighters are a great example of this when they do training. No one firefighter can climb the wall themselves. It takes 2 or 3 of them, and if they work together, they can climb that wall faster than any single human can themselves. And what we find is in business, as well as in personal life, humans are community-based people and community-based species. But what's really, really true is this semi-narcissism, if you will, of having to do it yourself.
Yeah.
It's like a great saying is, there are books out there that can shave 10 years off your learning curve. If you need a tire, do you go and learn how to mix rubber and pour your own tire? No, you go buy the tire. You need petrol, you're not going to go crack your own coal. You're going to just buy the petrol. And I think a lot of people, both in business, starting out and current, even the CEOs, when they reach out and they go, you know what, I'm not the best at finance. I need a finance guy. I'm not the best at design. I need a design person. I'm not the best at engineering. I need an engineering. No company exists as a sole person, and those that do are mostly run by tech. But even in that case, someone had to talk tech. So when people get stuck and they have these obstacles, like you say, learning to reach out for mentors, there's this famous saying, you are the sum of the 7 most volume of information you take in. It often is said that you're the sum of 7 people you're around, and that is largely true for your social circle. But for people who are going at entrepreneurship, they're going at growth, they're going at personal development, it becomes a lonely road because it's hard to drag the family with you. It's hard to drag the friends with you when they also want to party and drink and have good times. And you want to sit at home and study and get better and plan for your future. So it is lonely, but at the same time, surround yourself with mentors online, on social platforms. We have this wonderful thing called the algorithm hacking principle, which is only watch the stuff that makes you feel better and don't watch or hide the stuff that makes you feel crappy or distracts you from your goal. Because entertainment is as big an obstacle, and if not larger, than most physical obstacles people have in their life. Because they'll waste 70% of their time. The Netflix is a great example. 2 people get home after working a long day at 5 o'clock. They eat dinner with their family, bath, everything, 7 o'clock they sit down. You've done your family time. Now, one group watches Netflix from 7 to 10 and goes to bed, or maybe until midnight, and detriments their own sleep and their mental cognitive ability. The other one's practicing and learning and studying and watching inspirational stuff and applying their life. And Alex Hormozy says it wonderfully. The people who spend the extra 2-3 hours a night end up spending an extra 300 to 600 hours a year, and you only need 100 hours to become better than 90% of humanity. So if you're spending 1 or 2 hours a night, I mean, the average to learn a new skill is 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day for a year.
Yeah.
Now, imagine spending 1 to 2 nights. You say you're passionate. You work 5 hours a night, whatever. Take rest breaks. Don't burn yourself out. But at the end of 1 year, you've done in 1 year what most people do in 2 to 5. And we've proven this repetitively with different business owners. And it's wonderful because it comes down to the power of persistence, staying power. And it's not, I'm putting my feet in the rock and I'm granite and I'm unmovable, because an unmovable force against an unstoppable object never ends well. This is why a lot of relationships crash and burn when the rise of entrepreneurship happens. Whereas if you say, okay, cool, what is my core why? I want my family to have a better life. Whether that's your wife, your kids, your mother, your siblings, I want my family to have a better life, which is a lot of people's core why after peeling back. Some people just are so scared to be poverty stricken they never want to have to suffer that again in their life. It's one of my core why. But some people also don't want to see people lost to mental breakdown. We had an aunt that went that way, and it really re-elevated the point of mental health. And I think this is where persistence comes in, is people think persistence is money. I have enough money, I can grow the problem. But if you don't have mental persistence, mental staying power to say, okay, I've got my plan, I did my SMART goals, I made sure I laid out my annual statement, I observed my obstacles. Now I'm going to stick this out for the 2 to 5 years it takes. And that's where I think people, they misunderstand why some people succeed. When the first 4 years nobody knew they existed, and suddenly in year 5 they're famous. But it took 5 years of persistence, and I really want to get your perspective on what persistence means and how people can sort of align themselves with that.
Yeah, persistence is a tough one, because it's like you said, it's people want to achieve something in a certain amount of time, and when they can't see instant results, it's so easy to say it's not working. And I love that you use like phys ed, because it is the same principle. If you get a brilliant workout regime and you do it once, you're going to feel good afterwards, hopefully. You're going to feel good afterwards, you're going to get the kick of endorphins, but you're not going to see the physical results. And I think anything in life is like that. And again, I like what you said, it's not about consistently bashing your head with the same problem in the same way. Because, if you do the same thing over and over again, trying to expect a different result, it's insanity, right? But persistence comes down to reframing the mindset. We know that. Persistence comes down to understanding that failure is only failure when you decide it's the end of the story. And so instead of failure, you have obstacles, you have opportunity to learn. And this, I think, is also important when you said it's a lonely journey sometimes. Leading yourself with a heart of contribution and not with a significance aspiration of, I want people to see me in a certain way, but I want to be able to give back. It does become a lonely journey because you outgrow people. And as soon as your current group of friends, there's those in-between phases, and I don't think people touch on it enough. So I'm going to definitely go into this. But there are those in-between phases when you are taking control of the narrative, taking control of your destiny, learning to lead yourself and others, where you outgrow whatever your support system is to start with. Because wherever your unhappy state is, your current state that is so painful that makes you make the decision to go to the next level, you have support groups there. Like you said, the average people, you're the average of those people you hang out with. And when you decide to level up, there's an in-between phase where you're not there with the next group of people. You're not there with the next support group. But this support group starts to see a change, and they're not ready to change with you. And so they cut you loose, or you have to cut them loose. And it's so hard because we are designed, like you said, we are designed to create a community. We're designed to connect with each other. And so there are times where that is so lonely, and especially I think in the beginning phases where you don't always know what you're doing. And for anyone who's starting out, this is especially for you. There are definitely times where imposter syndrome is a daily occurrence, even when you know what you're doing, even when you're confident. I mean, I think you and I can attest to that. Even now when we're passionate and confident and we know the next step, there are still days when you wake up and you're like, am I really doing this? Can I really do it? And then you just do it anyway. And I think it's that switch of can I, should I, how, I'm doing it anyway. That is the next step. But that in-between phase where you lose people. And some of those people are family members. You know, family members who connected with you in your complaint. You know, and complaining is also a way for people to connect. You know, employees, you can have the best work environment ever. But generally, colleagues will always complain about something at work because it's not that you're miserable people. It's just that it's a way to connect with the colleague. And it's easy to connect on things that make us unhappy because there's that ease of emotion of we can both get upset. It's much harder when a colleague's upset and you're like, think of the bright side. Let's be positive. You're like, I really can't speak to you right now. So there are lonely times, but there are these beautiful moments in that journey where you cross paths with people. And again, it's not that you will have those people for the rest of your life. Like, you will continuously grow into different communities, let's put it that way. And it's not that you shut the door on other people. It's just the people who decide not to grow with you or not to celebrate your growth, they kind of fall away by themselves. And it's actually got nothing to do with you and everything to do with where they are on their journey. So persistence, again, spending time with yourself and getting really comfortable with being by yourself, being alone with your own thoughts, is a huge part of that persistent journey. Because if you cannot go through those phases alone, you're going to fall back into old patterns too easily. And so part of that, like you said, your mindfulness, your mental health, your self-reflection, and making sure that you're still taking care of yourself while you're going after your goals, your new year, new me, that you're not forgetting that you need reflection time. You need to get to the root cause of why you haven't gone after those things in the past and what's scaring you now. You know, you have to sit with those fears. And I think that's probably the scariest part of your journey is every time you level up or elevate to a new phase, there's a new monster that you have to face. And I can't say that at my stage where I'm at, and I haven't heard anyone else at whatever level they're at saying that they've come to a place where there are no monsters. Every phase has a monster. But I will say that you get more courageous to face the monster, and eventually you're kind of looking for the monster and it starts to excite you, like, where's the monster in this level? You know, so from a fear-based mindset, it starts to become exciting. And because it also becomes a part of your story. So I think that's another part of persistence is when it comes to failure, you only fail when you decide that's where it ends. But if you look at it and you say, wow, this is a challenge that I am going to overcome somehow, I don't know how, but I will, and that's going to be an amazing part of my story. And that's, again, where those people who inspire us, those leaders that have inspired us all over the world, every time they have a new challenge, and they have multiple challenges, and they're like, this is how I overcome it. You're like, oh my word, that's inspiring. And it ignites a whole new spark in a whole new group of people. And so each challenge is an opportunity for you to ignite the spark in other people because it becomes a part of your journey. So yeah, I think that's really important.
I like the way you say level up. Like, it's a breakthrough. And in the growth cycle of everybody, personal or business, you have glass ceilings. And a lot of people reach the glass ceiling and they struggle to break through it. And all of a sudden, it's like this defining glass shattering moment. You suddenly in the next edge stop. And it's like you say, balloons hang near the ceiling, but if you've just broken through the glass, you're not up there yet. But you kind of feel a bit alone. And what's really, really cool is when you stop and you actually think, you're never alone. You're forever sitting with staff member up here. Like, 1,000% your internal voice, while largely affected by your childhood and who raised you and what you were told. You get to reprogram. You get to sit there and go, I get to tackle this thing. I get to achieve this. And there's a famous saying in sales that is the no principle. No is never a bad thing. No is the next opportunity. Why did they say no? Why did I get a no? Where's the opportunity? Where's the lesson to grow? Because to you, it's something huge now, but to you in a week, it's something small. And we often say your future laughs at you when you stress about the small thing, because to you, it's huge now. You're staring at this thing, and it's massive, and it's unconquerable, and it's insane.
Big boogeyman.
And then you look back at what you've achieved, and this is what we often tell people when you're doing the breakthroughs, when you're going for persistence, when you doubt yourself, stop. And it's true if you've ever had to walk from school to home, or if the car broke down, you got to walk to the petrol station. You get hot for it. You stop and you turn around and you're like, oh, wait, I came this far. I made it this far. I conquered 100% of my bad day. And I think that's where persistence really settles into the heart and into the sort of the core of most people that make it through, is always use your stack of undeniable proof that you survived 100% of your days. You went through your action plan. Maybe your action plan took a little longer. Maybe it didn't. A great saying that we often hear is that while you survive 100% of your bad days, what's also really interesting is that you've overcome 100% of the problems that stopped you before.
Yeah.
And if you haven't, funny enough, go back to your action plan and you'll find out that you kind of found a way around them sometimes. You don't always have to go over the wall. Sometimes you can go under it or around it. When the coaches start looking like certain rules can be bent, and there's a famous saying, I think, from Ezra Firestone. I'll be corrected there. You can get anything you want in life. The only thing that slows you down is how many people you help, how many people you step on, and the thing that speeds you up is how many people you work with, you collaborate with.
Also, like what you said there about there's so many different ways, and I think that comes back to why you can't just have one mentor, because your mentor's way is not necessarily going to be the way that you figure it out. So you want to have a variety of information so that you can figure out your way. And also, I think what we're saying a lot of is when you start on any kind of journey, the natural brain program is to say, I'm lacking resources. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough skills. But if there's one thing that I've learned, not just in my journey, but observing my mentors and my colleagues and friends who are also on their own journey, is it comes down to your resourcefulness. So it's not about resources, because the truth is you'll never have enough money. Even when you're a multimillionaire, you'll be like, I need more. Now I need to be a billionaire, And I've seen this in clients. I've seen clients who are much wealthier than myself and much wealthier than the other clients, and they'll still say, financial issues. I'm so stressed. And there will never be enough resources, ever. You will always have a deficit in resources, but that is literally your opportunity to become resourceful. How do I collaborate? How do I get this? Who is willing to connect with me to help me? And I think most people think when you start, you think that the world is maybe quite a pessimistic place because it feels like you're doing it on your own. But I'm yet to come across any business owner or company who, if I've said, can you help me out to some extent? Not a freebie, but can you help me with advice? Can you collaborate with me? Can we do an exchange of services? I'm yet to find a company to just flat out turn me down. People are generally wanting you to succeed. And as soon as you realize that, people actually, the right people, the people who are on the growth mindset, we want each other to achieve, because if you achieve, I achieve. If you succeed, I succeed, because it means we can bounce off each other, we can connect, we can collaborate. So when you get that group of people and you ask them for help, I don't think it's possible for you to fail. If you consistently follow your action plan and you continue to collaborate with the right people.
Wonderful psychological thing that we like to apply to some clients, and it's called the dating methodology, or the dating method, the dating concept. Is people think it limits only to boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever the game is. It's not. The relationship building applies long beyond personal intimacy. If you take relationship dating principles to business and to life, it's like what you said now is, you have to sometimes date a few people to figure out what you don't want in a partner, what you don't want in a friend. I mean, we all had friends in preschool and primary school that we don't speak to. Friends in high school and college that we don't speak to anymore. Some friends from preschool we still do speak to, because your vibe creates your tribe. And as you elevate your vibe and as you grow and you improve your frequency of understanding and knowledge, and you really discover how little you truly know in the world, the expanse, you get to pick your speciality. You get to pick, this is why humans specialize, because you're really good at one thing or a few things. There's an old saying that people like to knock a lot, which is a jack of all trades is worse than a master of one. And it's actually not true, because the entire saying is better a jack of all trades than a master of one, because you actually know more, you can do more. You're more helpful, you can contribute back to your surroundings, because, again, you go back to it. You help someone, you don't know how they can help you. They can help you directly. They can help you by referring you to someone. They can help you by giving you, we call it gold panning. Gold panners. They don't walk out with a kilo of gold out of every river they pan.
No.
But they get these little golden nuggets, whether it's millimeters in size or centimeters in size. They get these tiny golden nuggets, and we find education and mentorship to be the same. The world is flooding you with knowledge.
It can be really overwhelming.
Yeah. So if you make the choice to smartly plan out your goals and put in the persistence and really take the action steps and surround yourself with enough points of knowledge and education via YouTube, via mentorship, and I 100% recommend mentorship, because it can save you decades.
It really can.
It's like people don't believe it in the beginning. And remember, there's like loads of free material before you invest. But the most singular true thing that Warren Buffett has said, and all of the big investors in the world, is the greatest investment you could ever make is in yourself, because the multiplier is unlimited. Whereas buying a car, it devaluates. Buying a property, maybe it increases in value, but it still has costs to run it. Yourself, your brain will only be, so the better you make your life, your brain, and your mindset, the better your growth in the future will always be. And that has been proven through the millennia. So on an ending note, to everyone that watched, thank you for attending. And we push you to keep the persistence up, make the breakthroughs, plan your action. Join Jess for more sections, to follow her on social media. She has amazing free content she just gives away. And this is the benefit of the world, is the more you give away, the more people give back. So give without wanting, and the world will return the favor. And we look forward to seeing you in the next session. Thanks so much. Thank you, Jess, for having me.
Thank you.